Hi, my name is Elliot Eaton. I currently work for Google, working on cloud technology consulting in London. And I'd like to talk a bit about my career and how Japanese got me to where I am today. It's a bit of a non-intuitive route, but it got me there. So I finished university in 2011. I initially did an additional year of study in Japan at the Inter-University Center for Japanese Language Studies. From there, I started working at Rakuten. I started in a business development position. But from there, I was able to transition into more of an analytical and technical role, and from there, keep on moving into more technical roles. Eventually, I got to Google Japan, where I was working on programmatic ad buying solutions, and now I'm at Google in London, working on the Google Cloud Platform. And so the way that Japanese really made this possible is kind of that first step of going from university into something where I could find a unique niche. So I went to the IUC program after university. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, with my career at that point. But the IUC program was very rigorous, got me up to a N1 level of Japanese ability, and also the confidence to interview and do business level Japanese. So after that point, I started looking for employers in Japan in ways that I might take advantage of this kind of multilingual specialty that I had. So I started at Rakuten. Most new graduates, or shinsotsu, are hired in a generalist capacity. So they're assessed on perceived cognitive ability, the background of schools and academic structures they have, and also the cultural fit. And so they start as a generalist. Eventually, after going through various internal training, they are assigned to different departments. And that's how I ended up in business development, doing sales in Japanese over the phone, which was not my dream job at all. But it did improve my Japanese further. But I was able to transfer within Rakuten into an analytical role, looking at the software we use on the website to track user behavior. Through this, I got to dabbling in code to modify and make customizations on this. And I found through coding that I was actually pretty apt and interested in this. So from there, I did a lot more self-study to make myself more attractive as a technical candidate, and eventually got into Google in a position that worked with programmatic ad buying, partner integrations for the DoubleClick product, things like that. So I've trended more and more technical, but the foot in the door was definitely Japanese ability to get me into that first interesting experience, and then continuing to pivot from there. And like I said, tech really wasn't the end goal. It wasn't something that I planned my whole life. I did not have a computer science background, for example. But the Japanese approach worked for me in terms of getting into this kind of unique position as a multilingual international worker, and then finding interesting experiences from there. Some of the really interesting ways that special combination of being multilingual happened. There's one example I remember powerfully when there was the product team of a partner company coming from the US to Tokyo. And I was nowhere near the most senior member of the team in Japan, so I really shouldn't have been driving that conversation and the relationship with this technical partner. But because I was kind of the only person who could bridge both sides, I got the opportunity to take over this conversation, build contacts with the external partner, and kind of show some leadership in a way that I probably wouldn't have been as just a monolingual person. So that was very exciting. And the thing I love about tech is how quickly it is changing. The piece of technology or code or framework that is big today is not the same that was big yesterday. So this means as a new person trying to enter the industry, you kind of have not quite an advantage, but you're at parity with people who have seniority, in that even somebody who has been in the industry for 20 years, tomorrow they still have to learn that new piece of technology afresh, and you're in the same position of having to learn it fresh. So if you get that first foot in the door, it can be a really good chance to pivot in a way that I think is very unique with tech compared to other industries, which may not change so quickly. Other advantages of Japanese in my life, a lot of it comes down to the experiences I've had. I lived in Tokyo for 6 years after university. I loved it. I had so much fun in Tokyo. I love acting. I got to explore acting in multiple languages, doing improv comedy. I got to really enjoy the international aspect of life in Tokyo, because the world of expats and immigrants and foreigners in Tokyo is really such a small circle. Everyone knows each other a step or two removed. they really band together because it can be difficult to live in Tokyo for language and cultural reasons for somebody not from there. So people band together and you really find these communities in a way that I loved. So I got to meet really interesting people from all over the world while living in Tokyo. I loved that. And I guess a bit of advice to wrap it up for college students who are studying Japanese now. First of all, I'd say keep at it. It is a long learning process. I'm currently studying Portuguese because my partner is Brazilian, and I am amazed that after a year of serious study, I can read news articles, and I know that after a year of serious study in Japanese, I was nowhere near that point. So that's not really advice, but just kind of a hard fact. It is a difficult language, so keep at it. The other bit of advice I would say is if you can find some way that ties Japanese language study into your existing interests, that's great. One thing I did, I was practicing judo while in Japan as a student, which was really useful as a way of interacting with the language, not just studying it in a sterile classroom environment, but responding to a command, giving a command back while you're moving around, really thinking on your feet. So that was a good opportunity for me that didn't feel like studying. I enjoyed it just as an activity. Similarly, I had a friend who was as a hobby, he loved the Japanese rock. So he would do translations of rock songs from Japanese to English for the website Lyrical Nonsense. And through this, he developed the most wonderfully rich and expressive vocabulary of literary references and poetic references and seasonal phenomena that are a little bit esoteric, but just so wonderfully expressive and very impressive. So that was just something he loved to do as a hobby, and he got this exquisitely rich level of Japanese through doing that. So if you can find something you love that ties into studying and you can trick yourself into studying, that's great.